Hey, what is up, everybody? This is a very special edition of the Fantasy Walkabout. I, of course, am the man who calls himself the host with the most time on his hands, and with this combine, that name has been put to the test because lots of stuff happening, and what a week we have moving forward. I, of course, am Thomas Tipple. You can find me at Thomas Tipple FF, and this week's upcoming show will match our guest totals for 1 month, all in 1 week for the Full Tilt Dynasty podcast.
I'm Billy. You can find me on Twitter at BigBillyFF, and Snoop Connor is the best running back name we've ever had.
And I'm Tom Lee. You can find me at Tom_Lee, spelled LIE, 92 on the tweets. And my underwear Olympics would look very different to what we've seen over the last few days.
I'm Jacob Sanderson. You can find me on Twitter at FF_RTDB. And Velus Jones was older playing on the same team as Drake London in 2019 than Drake London is today.
Oh my gosh. Oh man, that's so good. Look, I can't wait to do this show. So normally it would just be, right? It would just be Tom Lee and I. Yeah, there you go, Bill. You get down there.
Back down.
The Tom Lee show. Look, normally it would just be Tom Lee and I talking about, ridiculous trades or people overreacting to moving in rankings and whatever. And I know we talk about it all the time. We are not here to really discuss dynasty startup information. There are 672,421 other people, other shows, other podcasts, and way smarter people than us to talk about that. What we're here to talk about is establish league value. The beauty is with rookies, your established leagues still play a big part in the combine and everything else. So that's what we're here to talk about. That's what we're here to do. And we brought in Billy and Jacob from the Full Tilt Dynasty podcast, main show, I guess, anchor show, whatever you want to call it. Because, Jacob said he couldn't do it because he had too much stuff to do. Billy said he couldn't do it because he had too much stuff to do. And then as I was sitting here, Billy said, yeah, sure, I can come on it. And then not expecting Jacob to pop in, he showed up at random. So here we are. Thanks, guys.
Here we are.
Yeah, and real quick before we jump in, I want to give credit because we were just talking about how old Velus Jones is. Me and him, I just found out, had the exact same birthday.
There you go.
Wow. Are you going to be declaring for the draft?
I was going to say, is that a good thing?
Yeah.
It sucks because he actually.
What do you think your speed score would be?
Oh gosh.
I'm big, so I don't have to run very fast to get it. that metric
Look, guys.
helps
out. Obviously yesterday, really, the last 2 days really has shed some light on where these rookies are going to stand for folks. Look, I want to start with the same thing that we started with the other show here on the Fantasy Walkabout. Do we care? What information pulled from this last couple of days at the combine do you guys actually care about? There's a couple that I care about, but I want to hear from you guys first. Tom Lee, was there some news or information that came out that really made you care?
No, I think the thing with any of the combine stats is if you already had an opinion, you just want to make sure that it's backed up. You're not looking to change based off it. You're not looking to promote people savagely unless they were off the board. Now they're on the board. So for me, it was just checking, okay, well, what are these numbers that we've heard of from testing within their school? What does it look like now? And does someone just look really, really slow to the eye? That's pretty much my entire thing with the combine is, does this guy look like it's the first time he stepped on a field and tried to jump, or is it, this is what we're looking for.
Kyron Williams.
Yeah, exactly.
Poor guy.
Jacob, some bit of news that stood out to you?
I think my overall takeaway is just that the heat map has shifted a little bit. I talk about the heat map for rookie picks as in what are the most value efficient pockets of the draft, right? And I think last year, I always thought the heat map was right around the 4 or 5, where it was either Chase and Pitts are going to fall to you or Fields and Lance are going to fall to you, depending on what other people do. And then similarly, in that early 2, where it was sort of the last of that tier of wide receivers on the Elijah Moore, who obviously turned out really good. Rondale Moore, not as good. But and looking at this draft, I thought first it was going to be pushing sort of into that mid to late first. And I think that to an extent, but to me, there's 2 guys that clearly separated that I think are worth holding the 101 and the 102 for, or trading up to that.
Yeah.
And then I think that the second round value is really stretched out because we saw a lot of wide receivers crush expectations. We saw a lot of the pass catching running backs come in with nice weights, run nice times. And all of a sudden, I think that the picks like 2-7, 2-8, 2-9, those look a lot better. So to me, I guess if there's a shift, it'd be if I'm sitting between like the 1-3 to 1-6, which is where I want it to be last year. I either want to trade up into the 1-1, 1-2, or I want to trade back and try to grab an extra mid-second.
Yeah.
Right. I think that's going to be clutch, especially on a show like this where we want to talk about value and trade value and what it actually means and what's actually palpable and actionable. Billy, news that stood out to you from the weekend.
I think the biggest one is there's a top tier at kind of every position, it feels like, and then an ocean for the rest. Like it feels like throughout this draft, every single player is an athlete in some form or another.
Except for Kyron Williams.
Yes.
Well, it's some form of athlete.
That guy's getting
not what we
bodied.
Boom. Everyone on Notre Dame tested poorly. Jack Cohn. Screw you for leaving Wisconsin. Anyway, but
Bitter Betsy.
but like it seems like a lot of players in this draft tested well that like I can vouch for. I've never heard of some of these guys outside of like quick passing conversations on Twitter. So like being able to see some of these guys come out and show that there is a lot of depth to this class, I think makes, if you're not picking in the early rounds, you shouldn't be worried, because I feel like this is going to be a shot where every year when you try to trade a third, you're like, well, you could get Antonio Gibson, and usually you're getting Keyshawn Vaughn or something. Well, not really, because Keyshawn Vaughn won the first, but it feels like that could be a lot more reasonable this year. It feels like there's a lot of guys who are going to go in the second and third of your drafts that could have that potential to be that next level guy.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I can definitely dig that, and I think right with the upper tiers for each position. For me, news that shocked me: Spiller not running, Kenneth Walker foregoing the last two of the receiving drills. I haven't seen an updated reason as to why, and just London deciding that he's not even going to work out on his pro day. He's going to hold a individual workout, I believe, in Los Angeles, for a guy who said he was about 15% away from being 100%. So kind of interesting to me. Kind of seems maybe a bit risky, but ankle injuries can also be a complete bitch to deal with. So, I mean, I don't want to put too much more into it than that. I just thought it was kind of interesting. And I think and I know they're not the fantasy football position players, but the offensive line looked really good, which means a lot of offensive lines will hopefully look a lot better in the next year or two, because having a deep influx of offensive linemen will really help a lot of these teams like Miami, that everyone's super stoked. Oh, get Breece Hall to Miami. Breece Hall's probably going to die in Miami because that offensive line is absolute trash. So, I mean, like I said, we said on the show with Troy, just because Miami drafts a running back doesn't mean they're an auto RB1. It's just how it is. Okay, that's to be care. What's up next here for everyone here, Tom Lee? We're gonna do some punish a Tolly. Is that what we're
Punish a Tolly. Yeah, we'll roll into that.
All right, we're gonna punish a Tolly. Tom Lee will let everyone in who's not familiar with the program. We're gonna show a highlight though of one of our previous episodes coming right up right now. Enjoy. Billy, let's start with you.
All right. I was hoping we were starting with someone else so I could pull up stats, but that's fine. I'm going to wing it, baby.
Everyone's in the same boat. Yeah. Everyone's sitting here in the four square here going like, please don't pick me first. I want to hear someone else.
I feel like I'm back in my seminar today. We get some discussion questions.
Nah, this one I thought I just wanted to pull up stats to back it up. But legitimately, I think one of the best picks for this is Robbie Anderson. And yep, Tom, do it.
I know. Violent reaction.
I know. I get it all out.
I still don't think I'll ever accept Robbie Anderson as like a positive in any conversation.
New
ever.
Patriots wide receiver Robbie Anderson.
Oh, good. So he can
At
go
least
and
that's the rumor.
suck. He can go and suck behind the last 2 free agent signings they had, and then
He can
Amari
go
Cooper,
have an accurate quarterback.
so they can. Oh, good for him. So he can still suck. That'll be great. Happy for him and the 4 other wide receiver 3s that'll end up being on that team, including Amari Cooper. Tom Lee, for people who are new to the program, why don't you explain what this segment is really about, what it stands for, and what we're about to do here?
Well, that's it, right? So punish a tallie. So I think you boys, what did you call it the other day? A tall boy, tall beer.
Yeah, tall boy is what we call
tall
it.
boy,
Tall boy.
not like the
Right.
lots
The
of boys
Australian
that
tall-
like me and Billy, we're a couple of tall boys.
Yeah.
Well, you
that's
all
a whole
are.
different
It really
category. That's a
pisses me
different
off.
Google search, that one.
Oh God.
Yeah, so what we do here is we have a light-hearted conversation, crack the top off one. I mean, if it was later than 7:30 in the morning for me, probably pull a beer out and start having a chat with you boys about it. But a light-hearted conversation, dynasty-themed, about things that we're seeing, things we want to talk about, things we think everyone else should be talking about, but it's not too analytical. We don't dive too in-depth, and we don't go crazy with the strategy side of it.
Yeah, exactly. And in that, we are going to dive into the combine because, look, numbers are great, but we don't really have the draft capital. We can't paint an entire picture. Like, it's really hard to sit here and make all proclamations without the entire picture, but we have most of it. So I feel like it's like we can actually talk about it kind of at this point. Tom Lee, what were you looking at going into the combine? I mean, you just said that it's not really it's more of a to confirm maybe some priors or look for individual things, but just for like you know what your team is, right? If your team's been around 2, 3, 4 years, you kind of know where you're at.
Yeah.
You know where your draft picks are going to be at this point. You kind of know what you're targeting. In that case, are you looking like I can fill weaknesses in my team? Are you still looking for best value for your team? What did the combine bring to you strategy wise?
Well, right, like classic me, we're going to talk value. And like the boys said before, I mean, the excitement part of this year was that you don't really know what's there after the people you have in your top tier for each position. Right? It could be a bit of anything. It could be a lot of anything. So we're all really going to get to throw a lot of darts at the dartboard this year and call our own shots, which I really like for the Dynasty community because you've got so many different aspects that come together and have their guys in that next tier down. So for me, I wasn't looking at, does Kenneth Walker run quickly? I've seen him on film, kind of know what's going on. I like that he ran quickly. It looks good on the stat sheet. But I was pretty happy with him sitting in that sort of next tier of RBs for me. I was looking at who else pops. Like, what else are we seeing? Who's moving up the board? Who's moving up the NFL's board as well, not just ours? Because I'm not looking to change ranks based on what I'm seeing with their undies on. I'm looking to see who's starting to pop to these scouts' eyes because that's going to then infer what our second and third rounds and the rookie startups look like. So guys like your Christian Watsons, who, is a name that pops around the Senior Bowl and now starts to look really good because he's running and he's starting to look good on film in front of scouts. Those are the sort of guys you start going, I'm going to highlight this name, put a little asterisk next to it, and start looking a little more into what he did this year and last year and sort of where he's at.
Jacob, when you were looking at the combine, you're just casually sitting there watching. I know, like, none of us will I don't think any of us will sit here and say we're film scouts. Like, I don't think, and I was saying this when
Billy's only been watching the NFL for a year and a half.
All right, we got check the one, and now we can.
We're just gonna keep going. Look, I was saying this last night. There's only one person. There's only one person that's figured out quarterback scouting, and I believe that's God himself. Because no one else on the planet has fucking figured it out yet. The quarterbacks, Jacob, did you care about any? There's one quarterback I cared about other than Willis, because I expected Willis to be able to chuck the ball deep. He obviously showed that. He didn't choose to run, but his athleticism is quite obvious. The quarterbacks change for you. Do you still not care? Do you only want one of them? Like, what's the deal with quarterbacks for you?
Like, it is so hard for me to care about the combine with quarterbacks just because – like even the NFL doesn't really care that much about the testing numbers, right? Like, and I understand the NFL is going to be able to get stuff from the field drills that I can't. A lot of the stuff that they get from it, we don't even get to see. Like, a lot of it's just going to be how they're interacting with coaches, how they're commanding their wide receivers. Like, they're trying to get their vibe, get the metal of them, and that's awesome. But I can't pick that up from watching on my laptop. I like this quarterback class if some of them get drafted high. Like, there's every quarterback in this class like of the top guys that might actually get drafted highly outside of Pickett and Strong, like all the other four have best season college market shares over 15%. So like as pumped as I am on Willis, that's a lot of that is because he's the best rusher of the group, but he's also the guy who I'm most confident gets the draft capital outside of maybe Pickett, who I'm just not as interested in. But by all means, if Ritter or Corral or Howell, and I would say Ritter's the one who improved the stock the most, just based off of the 40 time he ran, how film scouts are reacting to him on the ground. You know, if he goes in the top 15, top 20, I'll certainly draft quite a bit of Desmond Ritter too. So
yeah, that's the name for me is Ritter. I wasn't expecting sub 4.5, not out of him at all. If you looked at his rushing stats, I believe he had over 500 every year except the last one. I don't know really what happened there. I think he was like 382 or something. He clearly can run. All he has to do is be accurate enough. And yeah, you're right. If he gets that, like I can see Ritter going somewhere in the second round, right? Somewhere in the high third round, even if someone loves him. I don't think he'll sneak into that first round. But I don't see why a team like you think in the second round?
I think he sneaks into the first.
Where do you think you might sneak in the first round?
I think he can go first too.
Like Detroit at 32?
No, I'm thinking Willis. I think Willis pushed himself into a top 10 pick. I think
he's going to Carolina.
Carolina or Atlanta. I think both of them could make a lot of sense for picking Willis. And if that's the case, I think Ritter is picture perfect to go to Pittsburgh. Like I think
interesting pick.
And I say that because the main reason I always listen to a lot more podcasts than I usually do around the NFL Combine is I like to listen to shows of people that actually go to the Combine itself and like are interacting with a lot of people at the NFL level. And every single one of those shows talked about how the sentiment around Indianapolis is that Desmond Ritter is pro-ready and that a lot of people view him as the most pro-ready quarterback in this class behind Kenny Pickett, who probably loses a little bit of value because he has small hands. Or I guess average size hands, according to but anyway. But that's what a lot of teams are looking for in this situation, especially teams that are ready, that are like a quarterback away, like Pittsburgh. Like they are so prepared to just throw in someone who's better than Big Ben, which I think Jack Cohn is the only one that isn't. Throw him into the starting lineup and then just start up. And I think Desmond Ritter is picture perfect for that. And if they maybe like Ritter more than Corral, which Corral didn't boost his stats very much this week, and Ritter blew up. I mean, he's the first non-Power 5 team to go to the college playoffs. Like
I think Ritter could go around 1-2. Like I think his stock's rising. I think there's going to be three quarterbacks that go round 1, and I think that those.
Sorry, go ahead.
I mean, we'll see. I just think 3 teams are going to take a quarterback in the first round because there's a lot of teams that need quarterbacks, and it looks like the veteran quarterback market is drying up. Yeah. I think that for sure one of those is Pickett, one of those is Willis, and I think Ritter is going to be the third quarterback off the board. I think Howell's. I mean, everything we hear about Howell from the Senior Bowl to the Combine is that he's looking awful in throwing drills, and the team seem continually not impressed. So I think that the Howell time is over. Strong ditto. I think that the Howell and Strong days are kind of done, and then we'll see what happens with Matt Corral. I mean, he was in consideration for a top 10 pick before he hurt himself in the Sugar Bowl, and he hasn't had an opportunity to be at the Senior Bowl or be at the Combine. So, I think he's put a lot of pressure on himself at his pro day, and we'll see what happens with that. But I also think he was like Corral was a guy who really would have been really needed, I think, to have this opportunity with a lot of scouts because of the offense that he played in. Like, you can see the physical tools, but his offense is like a glorified underwear workout because he's not reading anything. Like, everything is pre-read in that Kiffin offense at Ole Miss. And so you can see the physical tools, but I really think coaches would want to see, if you're working with Corral, like, how can this guy actually make progressions? How can this guy actually make reads? Let's get this guy on the whiteboard. I think being in these environments would have been really good for him. And I'm not sure that he's going to be able to be a round 1 pick just with the limited offseason plan that he's been able to put together.
I liked Corral the most, but I am a little worried. I just think to your point where you think 3 quarterbacks are getting drafted. I find it interesting. Player Profiler has updated their rankings. I do believe Desmond Ridder is 6th. If you go to the vaunted keep trade cut, I don't even think. Oh my gosh, I can't even find him on here. Desmond Ridder. Oh geez, he's listed as a quarterback 34. I don't think that's his actually. He's the 20th ranked rookie. I can't really separate it. Oh, maybe I can separate it to here. Hold on. Position? No, I cannot. Okay, so yeah, he's ranked low enough everywhere else. So if we think he's gonna pass up some of the favorites, let's just say Carolina, Willis, Atlanta seems like a Pickett landing spot. To me,
I think if Willis is gone, Atlanta doesn't take Pickett.
Really? I think they take a quarterback no matter what. I think they have to. What else are they going to take?
I mean, they're saying on a $40 million cap with Matt Ryan and
for 1 year.
A very, very strong quarterback class next year. Like, okay. I think it makes more sense for them to just sit and
is there a chance Atlanta maybe Atlanta moves up? Maybe
I think they move back.
I just think like what's the seal? I just don't think people. Well, maybe some people do. I certainly don't foresee the kind of ceiling on Pickett that makes me want to take him and then sit him for a year. Like he's a really old prospect. He doesn't have the stunning athletic traits. Yeah. Like to me, if you're taking Kenny Pickett, like I think you're starting him in week 1. I think that's the appeal of Kenny Pickett is that you're starting him in week 1. Like I just like it's just so different than like the Lance situation where it's like, oh, or Mahomes, right? Where it's like, oh my God, this guy's super raw. He has all these tools. Maybe he's not quite ready yet, but if we sit and we develop him, he could turn into something truly special. Like I don't think people view Pickett that way. You know, Pickett's he's already going to be 23 to start the year. He'd be 24 by the time he starts.
Which I think Desmond Ridder is going to be too.
Yeah, but Pickett's just the lack of the traits for me. Like I think Pickett's a day 1 starter, but I think if you're Atlanta and you're starting Matt Ryan regardless, which if you're paying him $40 million, you are starting Matt Ryan regardless.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
Then like, to me, I'm interested in Willis, but if it's not him, I'll just wait for Stroud and Young and Levis.
Do you think Howell sneaks in?
No, I think Howell's going to go in like round 4.
I have 4 going in the first round, and it's Willis to Carolina, Pickett to the Commanders, Corral to the Saints, and Ridder to the Steelers right now.
So we don't think Detroit takes a quarterback round 1 at all. They're happy with Goff for the next couple of years in his contract.
I think as soon as they traded for Goff, they were prepared to sit and play him for 2 years with his contract.
Okay.
I think they can take one at 32.
I think they go offensive lineman receiver. That's what I think they should do anyway. That's kind of what I had projected. I'm kind of slowly starting to get in on this, guys. Let's talk running backs.
The Lions, the Lions have 3 picks in the top 34, right?
Yes.
So I think the pick that makes the most sense for them with a quarterback would be 32 because you're going to want the 5th-year option on the court. Like you'd rather take the quarterback at 32 than 34, right? Because you want the 5th-year option. Correct. So if they they're not going to take one at 2. That seems ridiculous. So I could see like I could see 32.
Tackle goes 1 and 2.
Yeah. Brock Purdy, pick number 32.
Wait, that's how many interceptions he threw? Or?
No, that's how many incompletions he had because he threw it 2 feet in front of him. We're just we're bullying these quarterbacks today. I'm sorry, y'all are so much better at everything than I'll ever be. Jack Cohn, if you're listening to this, I'm sorry.
He's not.
I think there are some teams in the second round. That can mess around with the quarterback. Let's say Rodgers doesn't go to Denver. Maybe Denver drafts, I don't know, Carson Strong at the end of the second round. That seems like a move that I feel like they would make. Like he literally fits that fucking mold that Denver likes to draft.
He's very large, statue.
Yeah, exactly. Large with an arm.
He's used to throwing at altitude.
He's white and in the second round. It's basically Drew Lock.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Lock can move though.
Lock's got the right music combination for the fans. Anyway.
That's true.
Running backs, guys. Let's talk some running backs. Obviously, a lot of them showed out. I mean, how fast is this draft class? Like, So leading up to this thing, it was just like shit on the 22 class. Shit on the 22 class. I had never won a player from the 22 class. It's all speed. It's all gas, and then Kyron. Like it's all speed.
Damn.
Offensive lineman,
We are mean.
Kyron, rest of the league. So we'll see what happens. But running backs, do we think Brees launched himself in the first round? Like, do you think he if there's gonna be one?
I think the only team that could take Brees in the first round is Tampa Bay, and I think they'd be ridiculous to do that. Like, it doesn't make sense to me. Everyone else has much more like glaring needs somewhere else, like Miami. I mean, Buffalo maybe, but
I don't think. I mean, they can call it luxury pick, but we saw how well that worked.
I don't see it. Your second question, yes. I think if any running back goes in round one, it's Breece Hall. I think that Walker's profile is just too incomplete to go in round one. I just don't think that people are going to take like that 1 year wonder. Pass catching is a question mark. I think that that's a round two profile. I mean, Spiller didn't even do anything at the combine, so he was never going to go round one, but he's certainly not now. So if anyone does it, it's Hall. I still don't think so, though. I think that there's no running backs round one this year. I think Hall is probably the first off the board now, most likely, but I still think he winds up going in the second.
Yeah, I agree with Jacob on that. I think the hard part about this as well is I think this draft order is going to change a fair bit before we get to it.
Obvious.
Like post free agency with trades, people looking to move. It's why it's so hard with the quarterbacks. Like you just don't know. It's fine to say now 3 to 4 will go in the first round, but if someone else picks up first when they didn't have one before, or they send away like a key piece, a wide receiver or whatever, it could get pretty interesting to see who's going to move and where they're going to move to. Like we were talking before about Atlanta, everything I wanted them to do last year, they didn't do. So to project what I think they're going to do this year, it's kind of pointless. They probably will end up taking a running back in the first or second round because if they think Ryan's still got a couple of years left, why not just keep rolling these weird-ass dice they've been doing? So it's tough. I don't think any running backs go in the first round unless someone moves in to that 32 or 30 to 32 spot to take one.
To trade up for a running back?
To trade up for a running back, yeah.
They'd get roasted so fucking hard.
They would.
By the Twitter community.
Like you said, though, if it's one of those win now teams and they want that shot in the late first to get the extra year running back production because they want to compete now, I could see it. But I don't think it's anyone who's sitting there right now for me.
I just want to shout out Billy and I from the Slack channel for absolutely shitting on Algier or whatever. His name's not going to fucking matter because brutal time for the people that said he looks 4.3 on film. He looks 4.4 minimum. The fuck out of here. He's not. I don't want him. Yeah, I don't want him on my fantasy teams. Just not great for him at his size, and just I'm so happy that I never bought in. I never started to buy in. So shout out RIP. See you later.
Or 6'1" is totally fine at 225.
No, I don't.
He's gonna get drafted and have some.
He moves sideways like a semi truck. Like I don't care.
I mean, hang on. I gotta look something up real quick.
Tyler wide right turns Algier.
Yeah, exactly. Tyler can't turn Algier. I want to gush about James Cook for a minute. So look, if you look at the draft order, and you're right, I don't see many teams taking a running back. I think there's at least going to be one of our favorite running backs that gets fucked over by landing spot. Like I can see Tennessee taking one of our favorite running backs in the third round after the Derrick Henry injury, just to like mutilate his fantasy value. Like I can see that happening. One player I want to see go to a team who I think will use him. I want to see James Cook go to the New York Giants, actually, because I don't think Saquon's going to be there much longer.
No.
So if you get James Cook in the third round, which is where I think he'll go, I think he's a third round guy. If you get James Cook in the third round of the New York Giants, I'm all in. I'm 100% all in because I think he'll be the guy. His 199 doesn't scare me. He can eat a bagel and be if he can eat a bagel and be 200 pounds. He just needs He needs to eat the regular cream cheese, not the low-fat cream cheese, and he would have been 200 pounds on his way in. Come on.
Both
Then you
Georgia
take a
running
shit
backs
before
suck
drills,
after.
and then
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say.
Imagine the Giants trade Saquon and draft Brees at 5.
oh my god.
If Gettleman was in charge, that is 100%.
If he was still there,
They're
that'd
just
be a
going to use that
possibility.
pick to draft Kadarius Toney again.
What? Which Georgia running back are you more excited about? Because I thought they were two of the biggest combine risers.
Yeah, they were.
It's Cook for me, but I'm biased, so I think Cook's probably the better receiver.
Oh, easily the better receiver.
They even showed it on the draft coverage. He lines up outside, gives him a shake, and he runs a fade into the end zone. Right, I believe that was against a corner. That wasn't even just against a linebacker. Line him up everywhere. His angle routes and seeing him do it on tape, on the film, seeing him actually actively do it in games and take off the 4.42 speed, his ability to catch. I think if he gets up to 205 and is when he gets into an NFL building and gets on their NFL programs and he's not trying to eat college food or hit Dalvin up for McDonald's money, I think that he will. Although that's probably a violation of the NCAA criminal
sponsored by your
policies, jackasses. But I think Cook's a better all around runner than what White is. But White, powerful, right, can also do everything. I think we're gonna have this kind of, and it's easy to say it, but Sony, Nick Chubb type scenario with these two.
Sony, Nick Chubb.
yeah, but I think Cook's gonna be better than that. I think Cook can be a superstar in the league, like an absolute stud in the league.
I'll take Zamir White.
Oh, yeah. Sorry.
It doesn't need anything too crazy. Like Zamir White, I thought was a guy to monitor last year. And of course, that ended up kind of falling on James Cook a little bit more this year. But Zamir White hasn't really done anything wrong besides play on the same team as James Cook. And he ran faster. He's an inch taller and 15 pounds heavier. I think everything says Zamir White. I think James Cook looked good on tape. I think Zamir White looked good on tape.
Preference.
I think it's completely fine to say I liked some of James Cook's testing better than Zamir White's. But I think if you just look at it from a pure metric standpoint and historically who has succeeded in the NFL, I think Zamir White's the better prospect.
Interesting. Okay.
I'm torn. So James Cook, to me, this is it's almost like the Texas A&M backfield with Spiller and a Kane, kind of similar. I mean, Cook's bigger than a Kane, and I don't think either are going to be as drafted as highly as Spiller, but it's similar in the sense that you have the one running back who has sort of the prototypical NFL running back background, right? It's the 5-star prospect. He's got the 4.4 40. He's got the prototypical 6 feet, 214 pounds, right? And then the other guy is smaller, more undersized, really dynamic, more efficient, better pass catcher. But that's going to be the question: is he the guy that can handle the workload that team, or more specifically, is he the guy that teams will give that workload to? And I think that the comp for me with White is more everybody's really pumped up about of course everybody's favorite running back, Kenneth Walker. And I don't even mean this to try and get shots in a Walker. He did a great job at the combine, but I mean, if you want another guy who ran a 4.40 and who has prototypical running back size, didn't catch a lot of passes, Zamir White didn't transfer, and Zamir White played to me. If you're trying to do the whole okay, this guy can catch passes, but he didn't show it in college excuse, isn't the better excuse that you played beside another guy who's going to get drafted on day 2, who's an excellent pass catcher, James Cook is a way better pass catcher than anyone Kenneth Walker ever played with, right? To me, I think if we're going to make that excuse, it's plausible to me, maybe not likely, but it's plausible to me that there's untapped pass catching upside with Zamir White that we haven't seen because James Cook was there. And so to me, if he's going as a late round 2 pick in rookie drafts, I expect him to be drafted round 3 in the NFL draft. I think he's a guy that's worth taking some shots on.
What do you got, Tom?
So not fantasy football related.
Is it the defensive tackle?
Jordan Davis
Yeah.
just ran a 4.82 40 unofficial. So Kyron
Ooh.
Williams
At
40
341 pounds.
And
was
Devontae Wyatt
4.72.
ran 4.82. Damn.
That he's a top 5 pick. Jordan Davis is a top 5 pick. Like
Probably not, but
he should be.
yeah.
Can he play running back? Because if you run a
size.
4.82 and you're 341 pounds, how do you tackle that?
Shout out to Nick Pentikoff actually who posted it saying Kyle Shanahan is already drawing up plays when he sends them in motion. Like,
But,
it's
I mean,
a fair
teams
fact.
should use him on the goal line, right? Like, how does that guy not get a yard?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't. That is unbelievable athleticism.
DT sneak.
Just,
Can you imagine running? Okay, so I'm like kind of trolling, but I'm also kind of serious. Like, Tom, you coach football. Like,
yeah.
4.82, 341 pounds. Get this guy 2 toss plays per game. I just want to see people tackle this guy outside the hash.
You know
mark.
what's crazier?
How is that going to happen?
He's
other
100
defensive
pounds heavier than Derrick Henry and
the
3
other
inches shorter.
tackle, the other defensive tackle in Georgia ran faster at 4.8.
Oh, he's 3 inches taller.
So the 2 defensive tackles in Georgia ran 4.8 and 4.82. Unbelievable. So what's actually funny when you say that, so I was an offensive coordinator. That's what I did. And I actually had a center who was about 265, 270 pounds, small center, 280 even, as a kid. This is a high school kid. And I just started watching him in drills and when he was just screwing around on the kickoff return in warm-ups and stuff. And I put him in at running back, and you're right. He just you couldn't tackle him. Our offensive line wasn't good, but he bounced off 3-4 people. And when he got ahead of steam, people just moved out of his way. I did create a package for a guy that big to get the ball while he's running. So a lot of stretch plays to the big man.
Yeah.
It was pretty incredible to see it. So I think they should use it. Future tight end 1, Jordan Davis right there. But let's go landing spots for running backs so we can move on to what people really want to hear about, the wide receivers. And we'll make our wide receivers the hard yakka today because I feel like there's more to talk about with wide receivers. But let's go just for fun, shits and giggles while we finish off our tally. Perfect landing spots for your running backs and what really makes you. Let's actually load the question even more. Running back spots that would actively make you want to move up to trade these guys. Let's go with that. Because I know all of us are kind of like wait on running backs or whatever, let them fall to you. But what's the spots that you would actively want to move up to draft somebody if it went down? I'll go Tom Lee.
Little biased, but it's still Atlanta for me. Mike Davis, Cordero Patterson, old. Everything there is old, right? And I want to see someone who can be explosive out the backfield, can run between the tackles, even though they're not really there at the moment. But just that dump off play, someone who's explosive in space for Matt Ryan to just chuck it down to create some yardage, just become that piece mover and then complement it with the Pitts, then complement it with the other wide receiver they want to try and get in. And then next year, bring that young quarterback in. If you can get Ryan back cheaply the year after, bring someone young in underneath him and transition in. I think I really like that setup. For me, someone like Zamir White, if it's coming at a discount, yes, a lot of injury risk to that sort of play, but I like having that sort of player who can do a bit of everything. And I don't want them to invest first and second round capital into him. So if you can get him in the third, local boy, Georgia, going to Atlanta, like it sort of suits and fits. I like that idea, but that would get me a lot more excited about a guy like that than if a big mainstay went there, because he's just going to go at a price that you can't get sneakily for value.
Okay, so at 74, you would welcome Zamir White to the Falcons.
Yeah, I'd be happy them trading up a little bit from there if he's the mistake they made last year was.
Well, they have
not
58 in the
taking
second
Javonte.
round. Picked 58 in the second round from Tennessee.
Yeah.
So is that where you're most comfortable then? We'll go 58.
I'd be happy with
Tennessee
that as long as they looked at probably the offensive line probably in the second, pick a stud wide receiver in the first, and then you complement it with Zamir White or something like that. In the late second. Very, very happy with that.
Sure, absolutely, Billy.
I'd like to see any kind of strong running back go to the Bills.
Don't do this to my Singletary bags.
Like
Do it so
they
people can stop trying to offer me Singletary.
They have the pass catcher in Singletary. Singletary's fine. Like I think it's to the point that we have to give him that. He's fine. But I think if they get on the 5-yard line, any like grinder running back could run for 15 touchdowns behind that line.
It's 4-7-8 official for Jordan Davis.
That's Tom. I'm stealing your reply to my tweet, but I would 100% chance that if you put Zeke at the combine, he does not run 4.78. Like Jordan Davis for sure is faster.
Dallas drafts Jordan Davis and plugs him in at running back.
There's a 100% chance that Jordan Davis beats Zeke in a race today.
That's hilarious.
Hang on, that's so good.
So you said any strong running back to Buffalo, Billy. I think that'd be a good spot for Kenneth Walker then for them.
Yeah.
I think second round Kenneth Walker to Buffalo would actively make me want to move up to draft him. I think he would be fighting for a top 5, top 6 super flex pick if he went to Buffalo. Right, I do think that. He ran so well. He fits it. You want to play? Okay, just play a game.
Traylon Burks is as much slower to Wan'Dale Robinson as Jack Cohn is to Jordan Davis.
Oh my God.
I'm still not like concerned that Jack Cohn is a real human being, but Billy's talked about him enough that I'm starting to believe it.
Jacob, who's the running back that would actively make you want to trade up?
I think that Jack Cohn is just a mashup of Jack Bauer and Roy Cohn.
I should be trash talking Skylar Thompson. He actually played Texas Tech.
Yeah. Do you have any Alex Hornibrook takes next for us? Anyhow, or Tyler? What's something Hornibrook? No, my spot is Arizona. I mean, Arizona. We saw it last year. They are just an absolute cornucopia of high-value running back touches. When both Edmonds and Connor were healthy, they were both averaging over 10 points per game. They were both getting a lot of high-value touches, both the receiving game and around the goal line. The previous year, we saw a similar thing with Kenyon Drake, who looked absolutely washed the entire year, plugging his way to like 14 points per game just on pure touchdowns alone. They run the ball at such a high rate inside the 5, and they love checking the ball down to running backs in the horizontal fake sharp air raid. So that's the spot for me for sure. If you put any of these running backs in Arizona, especially one that has a 3-down skill set, and they can converge the Connor role and the Edmonds role, basically what we saw out of Connor for 4 weeks when Edmonds was out, and then Edmonds for 2 weeks when Connor was out. If we can just put that all into one running back with some juice, like be that Hall or any of them, that's a spot that I'd get really excited about.
And you'd actively move up for them. That's the bid. Like you would be willing to move into 105, 106 spot to draft that player.
That's a spot where I would strongly consider putting Breece Hall at the 101 there. My issue with these landing spots on like the non-elite prospects is that then I'm just taking shakier players in like really uncomfortable rounds. Yeah. And I get that the ceiling goes up, but the floor becomes so gross. Like that's the Trey Sermon issue from last year, right? So it's like, I'll take the cheap guys, right? So it's like, let's say that they re-sign James Conner. They let Chase Edmonds go, and then they draft Rashad White in round 4.
Yeah.
Like that's the kind of thing that I would love to do, because he'll probably be cheaper. But if they let Edmonds and Conner go, and then they draft, I don't know, like who's someone like kind of meh. Well, fine. Let's fine. I'll just use Rashad White. Like I love Rashad White, but they draft Rashad White in round 3, and they've let Connor and Edmonds both walk, and now it's just Rashad White and Eno Benjamin and like some other backup. It's like, okay, now he's going to be all of a sudden in a mid-first round pick, and it's like I'm not comfortable with that.
Yeah. Okay. I get that. For me, I'm gonna. Oh my God, can I pick James Cook twice?
No,
I'm not gonna pick James Cook again. I want to talk. I really want to. I want to talk about Rashad White, right? I want to talk about Rashad White because from Arizona State, I think that's the guy that I want to see go to a Tampa Bay in the 3rd and 4th round. That's who I want to see there. He immediately becomes their day 1 back because Keyshawn Vaughn sucks. And for fantasy in that team, at Bruce Arians' system is kind of running backs. I don't think they're going to have a quarterback that doesn't like to check it down. Their system is designed to check it down to them. They throw to the running back constantly. I think that I don't think the quarterback is really going to make that big a difference. They want to use the running back. They want to use one guy. I think that's pretty clear. And I think that he can do that. I really think that he can be the guy that catches the passes, does the goal line work, does the gritty stuff. I think he's one of those complete backs Jacob was talking about, and he's somebody in Tampa in that 3rd and 4th round. I'd be willing to trade up and get him in that, or where Trey Sermon was going last year. I'm willing to take that Trey Sermon leap on him in that early 2nd round.
Rashad White, you mentioned Tampa Bay. I love the landing spot. Bruce Arians, that's my comp on Rashad White is David Johnson. And so they get that Bruce Arians magic going again. I think Rashad White's my RB2 in this class.
Oh my God. Okay.
Like,
so you're not thinking 3rd and 4th round. You're thinking 2nd, 3rd round.
Like he was my RB3 in this class on January 1st when I released my first running back ranks. And that was with Spiller 1, Hall 2, and then White 3. Hall has certainly overtaken the 1 spot. But I don't know if he'll get the draft capital, but man, does he check every box. Like, he's the proper size. He has the production. He has the efficiency. He catches a lot of passes. He has the size. He has the speed. He has the burst. Like, everything is there. The only issue is, I guess, age. But we've seen a lot of older running backs come in. It's not a problem. Like, heck, Najee Harris was a freaking 1st rounder last year. In terms of older guys in later rounds, like Aaron Jones, Elijah Mitchell. Like, we've seen a lot of overage running backs. So I'm really fired up about White. And I'm certainly not drafting him as my RB2 today, because I do think he could go in round 4, round 5. But coming off that combine performance, stacked up with the production profile, I really don't think that anyone outside of Breece Hall has a more well-rounded profile than he does right now. I'm pumped about Rashad White.
Are we just leaving Spiller for dead?
No,
just because he didn't test
at all. I like Spiller still.
Talked about. But that's what not testing at the 40 can really do to a player, right? Like, it can really, I think if he comes back and blazes in his pro day and looks just as sharp, he did not look great to me in in all the drills he did yesterday. He did not look great to me at all. He looked clunky as fuck, but I don't know. Maybe that's part of the reason why he didn't run. I don't know. The combine's not easy to do, folks. I trained for a lot of these, and I fucking sucked at all of them. That's why I'm sitting here in this chair.
Did you see the mystery injury that he came out with after the fact?
No, let's hear it.
Well, his agent says that he had a strained abductor, and that's why he didn't run the 40, but he was working on the drills, and that he's going to run the 40 and do all testing at his pro day and show everyone why he should be the first running back off the board. This seems like a slightly fake injury to me. I don't know. I mean, his dad, who should be in the know, and Spiller both said that they were going to run the 40 in the afternoon, and then after he flunked out of the vert and was struggling, he decided not to run the 40. So I don't know about this injury.
That's what I think it is, and that's good for them. They
made the right call.
They gave him a crutch. Yeah, 100%.
I do like Spiller though. Spiller's he's a guy who is going to be translatable for fantasy because he does what we need him to do. Like, he catches passes. He is large, and he's going to be able to absorb a workload. I think that he's sort of going to be like that Josh Jacobs, David Montgomery type player who I don't find inspiring necessarily as a running back. However, we've seen this story before where 21-year-old rookie running back gets a lot of volume and they shoot up dynasty ADP. So to me, these are the guys that you buy when everyone hates them and then you sell when everyone loves them.
Yep, I agree. Look, we're going to take a quick second. We got another highlight. One of our other episodes. When we come back, we're getting into the hard yaka. We're going to try to keep it a little tight on the hard yaka. We that tolly lasted a long time.
Couple of tollies.
Yeah, exactly. But that's what was going to happen. We had 4 opinionated guys and the combine just happening. So it's great. We're going to do the hard yaka. We're going to set you up with Pat Doherty for Monday and Alfred Fernandez on Tuesday and get you all set up. And we also have at Shane is the worst next Saturday here on the Walkabout. So we're going to talk about that kind of stuff. And a change has been made to the Saquon Barkley giveaway because the combine just kind of screwed that over completely. We'll talk about that as well. So sit tight. Here's a highlight clip and we'll be right back.
Everybody that's seen this movie, right? My favorite movie ever. You know the scene where Karen, she's going down to get the dresses with laughing. Jimmy after Henry's in jail, and Jimmy is saying, "Oh, just a little father. just a little farther, just a little farther to go get the dresses, just a little farther, go get a little bit farther. And, to me, that's Najee Harris. It's like he gets 3 yards and you're like, no, come a little bit farther. And then he kind of takes one step and it's like, oh, that's 4 yards. Go a little bit farther.
Hey, go a little farther.
And then we get to 5 yards. And the whole scene takes about 5 minutes until you realize he had 8 yards.
Oh my God.
and to me, that's the Najee Harris running style.
Man, early results is that the Mob Ties episode is fan favorite. Like that one it's oh my God, you're not gonna want to miss that one. Go back there. That with Anthony Carenti, Mob Ties Part 2. I think that was episode 3 of this season. So you're gonna want to go back and check that out, guys. Tom Lee, for the people that are new to the show, why don't you let them know what Hard Yaka is and what it's all about?
I'm still can't say Hard Yaka properly, but that's okay.
Hey, I'm getting there.
We're getting there. A little more harsh on the A's, on the vowels. Harsh vowels. Hard Yaka is essentially blue-collar work, putting in the work that everyone else should be doing, but often doesn't. It's process-driven stuff. It's the nitty-gritty stuff that makes Dynasty both challenging, exciting, and interesting for us personally. Always has a bit of a value spin on it, but Hard Yaka just essentially embodies putting in the hard work, and getting out in the tools and seeing what's out there and actually working through it from a process point of view.
All right, so let's do that with wide receivers. Tom Lee, why don't you lead the way here? What did you come away with the wide receivers?
For me, process-wise, and I think we sort of alluded to this earlier in the show, it was if you know someone doesn't have a certain skill set, don't double discount them because they proved you right. So the classic one that everyone's talking about is David Bell. Was not a fast guy to begin with, therefore cannot be downgraded for not being fast now, right?
That's fucking clutch. That is a clutch point. So
this is like, we knew he wasn't a burner, but he's a big ass man who's going to catch the ball and do a lot of stuff with it. That's fine. That's still we have plenty of those in the NFL, but don't go and go, oh, well, he's out. He's mid-second round now because he can't run a little faster than everyone else. That doesn't make sense to me from a process point of view. And it's just something to check yourself on is why am I watching this? What am I taking away? And what factors do I actually think affect my evaluation of wide receivers when I'm looking at them from the combine?
Yep. I can agree with that. Jacob?
No, I agree with everything that Tom Lee said. I think that the biggest thing I think people should take from it now, specifically if you're doing any sort of drafting that involves rookies now, like pre-NFL draft, be it startups, because I know everybody likes doing startups with rookies included now, or if you're one of the psychos like me who's doing all these best ball tournaments with these rookies included, just really, really dig into the mock draft data, specifically dig into the mock drafts of the people that are plugged in. If you go on grinding the mocks, you'll see the orange dots and the blue dots, and the orange dots are the fan mocks and the blue dots are the expert mocks. There's a lot of these fantasy Twitter darlings who are getting pushed up like a David Bell, like Tommy just said, due to the orange dot fan mocks. And that's just not reflective. And I think that that's the biggest edge right now is you cannot be certain. None of us should be certain about, who's going to be the best and worst guys among these tiers in this class. But I think that the best thing you can do is find yourself some value on drafting some of these guys that fantasy Twitter doesn't like as much, but who the NFL draft seems to like quite a bit and who are going to get that draft capital. And if you can get some of these guys at the reduced price now, and then they get that draft capital, I mean, you can trade them for the guys that you like better later. You can keep them and maybe you end up being wrong and they're actually really, really good, right? Think about last year at this time, we knew looking at these mock drafts, Kadarius Toney, maybe we all think he's a joke, but he's going to go quite high, right? And then he did. And certainly Henry Ruggs, similar, and all these other guys, maybe they will bust, but definitely guys like Dameon Pierce, Brian Robinson, Zamir White are running backs who aren't very sexy. They're probably going to go higher than you think in the NFL draft. Similarly at wide receiver, don't be surprised when a Christian Watson and an Alec Pierce go ahead of a David Bell
Right.
and a Wan'Dale Robinson. So,
Billy?
Yeah, I think you need to come into this combine and your ranks have to have an effect on how you view these players and how you view these results. Like you first off have to go in and kind of have an idea of what to expect for a guy. Like Tom Lee said, we expected David Bell to run slower than the pack. He did. But I think the other thing is we kind of have to view a lot of these picks as like a pass fail. That's kind of how you have to view the combine. Is did they pass the thresholds you had? Then they kind of look like they're moving up. Like Christian Watson is one of these guys who probably was a pretty low guy for a lot of people. A lot of the fantasy darlings loved him for a smaller school guy. And he ran really fast, and now he's going to jump a lot of people. But just because Christian Watson or Calvin Austin ran so much faster than a guy like David Bell, or, I mean, even scrolling down the board, like Traylon Burks is another kind of good option for this, because when we have these expectations for these players, but if they pass what you expect, you kind of just have to leave them alone. And if they supersede or go well below what you expect, that's kind of where we need to like adjust our ranks. But if the combine went in and everyone did exactly what you expected them to, then don't touch your rankings, because you have your rankings for a reason.
Yeah. My takeaway on the receivers is there are clear fades for me, and then there are players now that I'm maybe more interested in that I wouldn't have been, if that makes sense. So there are players like where is he? Alec Pierce. He's someone that I want to pay attention to where he goes. I know he's a senior, he's older, maybe lacks a production profile, size, speed. That's what I want to see. So you're talking like late in rookie drafts or an undrafted rookie, right? That's a player, Nico Collins type sleeper for me that I want to pay attention to. And I've also will not draft, I think I'm going to say his name right, but Johan Dotson. No, thank you. I like to refer to Dotson as Rieger 2.0. And if you think I'm crazy, Dotson is 5'11", 178, ran a 4.4 340, 36 vertical, and ran a 7.28 3 cone. Rieger was 5'11", 206, ran a 4.4 740, had 17 on the bench, had a 42-inch vertical, and ran a 7.3 3 cone. Like he is Rieger 2.0 to me, and I don't want any part of it. I didn't like him pre-combine, and I don't like him post-combine. And yes, I'm using the combine to kind of confirm some priors. I think he looked like dog do. I'm not impressed with him. I wasn't impressed with him. There are other undersized wide receivers that I like more. Like I like Wan'Dale's size more at 5'8" and his weight than I like Dotson at 5'11" and his weight, if that makes sense. I just think that at 5'11", 178, it's just not with his speed. I'm not into it. I'm not into him. So that was one of my takeaways. And yeah, the slow guys, relax, guys. Like we're seeing in the NFL, some non-Olympic track runners be really good for fantasy football. Like the slot receiver has evolved in our time. So some takeaways there. I want to talk about some draft locations because so many receivers, so few teams. Where do you think can be? Where's I want to go. Let's go with a landing spot that will cripple a wide receiver who's drafted there. I want to know where's a place that will absolutely take a player off the board for you. I want to start actually with Jacob.
Man, it depends on the wide receiver because I do think like the play style matters, etc. And ultimately, like I don't care enough about landing spots to take a wide receiver who I really like fully off the board. But I will say this, I'll put it this way. Drake London, who's currently my wide receiver 1, there are definitely landing spots that could make him not my wide receiver 1 anymore. And the first of those would be Cleveland. And this is not just because Baker sucks, but specifically like the manner in which Baker sucks is that he's very conservative. Like he's a see it, then throw it quarterback. And I think that the NFL is increasingly getting filled with see it, then throw it quarterbacks. And that's where I would really express caution with London. I hope that NFL teams who, are putting in all of this work to look at how these wide receivers win, look at what they need around them to win, will ultimately make decisions that place players that they take in a position to succeed. But I definitely do think like London is a glider. He's not a separator. If you watch him, a lot of the way that he wins his routes is kind of like you do in basketball, which is like you have a guy in front of you who has position on you. You're kind of holding on and you're waiting to make the last move to get leverage and get that rebound, right? And it's very different than when you watch a guy like a Garrett Wilson who's winning his routes at the release point, right? And so on certain quarterbacks that are wanting to run that rhythm offense, like a Tua Tagovailoa, for instance, like he would be a horrible skill match with a Drake London. And it's not just as much like get him a good quarterback, but it's just get him a quarterback who's not as like risk averse. Like I think Keaton Slovis is frankly a total bum, but he's a guy who's like willing to put it up, and put his wide receiver in position to succeed. Yeah. That's why like I would love London on like the Jets, like with a Zach Wilson. I don't think Zach Wilson is great, but I think that Zach Wilson's a guy who's willing to take shots. And so certainly, any of these guys who have like the separation concerns, I think it's relative to quarterback match.
Sure, I think Cleveland. I think you're right. I mean, and it's not just because I like to take a giant shit on Baker Mayfield every opportunity I get.
No, you don't.
What? I think he's killed every receiver possible except for maybe Landry in Landry's first year there, where he was still PPRing his way to success. But for the most part, in 4 years, Baker has ruined the wide receiver room in Cleveland. So I'm worried that, Cleveland's going to go and they're going to take Burks.
I mean, they're going to draft someone, right? Like they can't just go into the season with Donovan Peoples-Jones.
They're probably going to draft 2. I think they draft one in the first
and 6.
They're going to draft one in the first and one in the third, I think. And I think that combination is going to be Burks, which just makes me so incredibly sad as a fan of his. And then we're thinking like 15 receivers probably go in the first 3 rounds. I think that's a good number for me. And I think, Justin Ross and Burks could find their way to Cleveland, and it's going to horrify me. So Billy, is there a player that really concerns you landing in a specific spot?
Not really. At this point, I'm kind of just saying wide receivers are wide receivers. Like the NFL is changing the way they approach this position so much. And every year we have this surplus, very, very, very good wide receivers coming out. Think about the last 3 years, the last 4 years, the top 20, 30 wide receivers in the league right now. Like it's such a fast buildup at the position that if you have a good player, I think they're going to be a good player there just because it's probably the second most important position in football right now. And we saw that with the Bengals. They opted to take a star wide receiver over a star offensive lineman and make of that what you want. But that's how teams are valuing this position. Because, I mean, we can see it with Dallas right now. Teams want to build this star-studded wide receiver core, that being a wide receiver 3 on a good offense right now just doesn't matter, I don't think. Because, I mean, if they're going to get drafted there, people may overdraft them in rookie drafts, and I think that's fine. But, that's where that position is going to get a lot of value. So it seems like a lot of these teams are either going to be drafted as a wide receiver 1 on a kind of rough offense, or a wide receiver 2 or 3 on a really good offense. And I don't think it matters. I don't think there is a place a wide receiver could get drafted where I'm just I don't want them. Because I think it's just there's too much of a need per NFL team for a good and talented wide receiver.
Yeah.
Yep. Fair point. Tom Lee, I said this again on the show I did last night. this receiving class feels like there's a lot of wide receiver 3s that will finish with wide receiver 2 seasons.
Yep.
And that's still important in fantasy football. And I think most of these guys are heading to the Brandon Cooks realm of finishes where they're always looked way down on, but surprise finish in the 15 to 16 range. This is how I view the class as of right now, the Sky Moores and these guys with draft capital pending. What's your take on the class as a whole at wide receiver and how it will impact extending your roster? I like to use it that way. This is a class where it seems like extending your roster will be a main point for it. How do you feel that fits with the class, or what are your takes on it specifically?
Well, I think it's sort of reflective of what we're talking about with the running backs, but the wide receivers have more attention, a little more draft capital pending draft cap. They're a different prototype to what we saw the last 2 years. These guys could develop into being the classic big wide receiver. And that may take a bit more time than what we've been used to waiting the last 2 years to see happen on the field. So that's probably why I'm not as big on, is there a landing spot that will ruin their value? It's yet to be seen. I don't know how they're going to use these guys. There's got a lot of free agency to sort of shake out and settle down as well. So I'm not really jumping at where they're going to land, what's going to happen. It's more a case of where do the NFL have these guys? Who's going to get the draft capital? And what sort of role / where do I think they can progress to being talent-wise in this huge sort of throng of wide receiver talent that we now have in the NFL? Where are they going to sit? Not necessarily where their ceiling is and where their floor is, but can they settle in amongst these other guys? Where are they going to sit against the old guys, the old changing of the guard? I think it's going to be fun for depth on dynasty rosters because you're going to have a lot of young guys with a lot of promise, a lot of old guys with a lot of still good production left in sort of your Allens, maybe Robinson if you can get it right. But a lot of those guys who are right on the edge of their careers finishing up, and you've got to decide, what do you want? Can you replace production? We love talking about value. Trading down a wide receiver, replace production, add value. Can you replace production with these younger guys? It's yet to be seen. It's kind of exciting and a little bit gambly, which is going to make this year a bit of fun, I think.
Yeah, I think maybe more than some others too. I mean, again, it seems like the last couple of years has been we kind of know where we want to rank all these guys, but even though it's quote unquote less touted, right? More touted ones that had Judy and Lamb. Look at how they're shaping up, even though they were the higher touted. I mean, we don't really know where these guys are going to finish when it's all said and done. So very interesting to me. Final thoughts on this combine day, weekend, week, whatever. And your final thoughts heading into the real hard work of getting into our ranks and setting that whole month up, which is going to be insane and crazy, but we love it. I want to start with Jacob.
I was on mute.
You're muted.
You can find me on Twitter, of course, FF_RTDB. I'll be doing some writing this weekend, so should have some stuff coming up in the next couple weeks up on playerprofiler.com. You can find me every Wednesday with Chase and with Shane, and we have some fun guests, of course, not only on this show, but on that show. We got Rich Rebar joining us on Wednesday. We got Dwayne McFarland joining us the Wednesday after that. So make sure to keep it tabbed. I'll be all over the airwaves, talking rookies, talking dynasty, talking fantasy. It's going to be a fun month.
No final thoughts on the class and the weekend?
Oh, final thoughts on the class? Sorry. My thoughts are that it's a really, really deep freaking class. And I thought it was a deep class already, and now it's deeper. And specifically, it looks like there's more guys that are going to get the draft capital that we want. And I think if you're sitting on some mid twos and some late twos, I think you should hang on tight. And I think it would be probably a good idea before the draft to add more of those if you can.
100%. Billy, same questions to you, sir.
Jacob stole mine. You can find me on Twitter at BigBillyFF. I was going to say, if you're a rebuilding team or a team that is in a position where you may need to just blow it up, this is a really good year to do it. Because if you have a bunch of back of the roster guys that are going to produce for maybe a year and put up some okay production, this would be a good year to ship off a lot of those guys for second and third round picks.
1000%. Tom Lee.
Yep, so you can find me at Tom_Lee92 on the Bird app. Final thoughts for us. So the class, like Jacob said, it's deep. The river runneth deep. For me with the combine, if there's guys who pop to you at the combine, go spend the time and go look back through their film and have a bit more of a dive into it and see what they actually did this year. It's really easy to dismiss a lot of these guys because they're not the leading producers. They're not the names on all of the hot people's lists and boards and that sort of thing. But if you like a guy, go and have a look at what they did. So that's from the combine point of view. We love a bit of Aussie slang, so we'll get that with my final thought. Have you heard of the phrase having a Barry Crocker?
No.
Right. So Barry Crocker was a musician / actor / host who wrote the theme song to Neighbours. If you've heard of the TV show Neighbours.
I've heard that.
A lot of Australian stuff comes down to rhyming slang, right? So to have a Barry Crocker or have a Barry or a Baz is actually to have a shocker, right? Which again, you may not even have over there. But to have a shocker means you've had a mare, you've absolutely had an awful game, especially in the football context. You've had an absolute shocker. So to have a Barry, to have a Baz, to chuck a Barry Crocker is to absolutely have a shocker.
I think you gave us 4 slangs there.
Yeah, I know. The explanation of the Crocker didn't help because there was heaps of other ones wrapped up in it.
We found that happens a lot with the Aussie slang where you mean to give us 1 and you accidentally give us 5.
Just
but hey,
slang.
Yeah, it's Ken Oath, mate. Look, we're still hammering home at Budgie Smugglers, right? I am still emailing them. That is a factual thing that is happening. We need the Fantasy Walkabout sponsored Budgie Smugglers so Tom Lee can sport them and
Jesus.
really
we'll have our own Budgie Smuggler Olympics.
be terrifying. And of course, like Jacob alluded to, we have just guests galore coming up. We have Pat Dougherty on Monday. We have Alfred Fernandez on Tuesday. We have @Shane is the worst stopping by here. Obviously, he is a fantasy football trade demon. So that show is going to be, if you have trades, let us know. We're going to talk to him about that. As I'm scrolling up and talking at the same time, we have Ben Gretsch, March 15th. That one's going to be bananas. We have Josh Larkey confirmed for March 22nd and just more on the way. We're constantly working. We're going to try to reach out to JJ Zacharies and see if he's got any time whatsoever coming up. So we're trying to, make things happen for everyone and listening. We couldn't do it without everyone. The Saquon Barkley jersey giveaway had to be changed because it was who was going to be our consensus 1 and 2 picks for the Full Tilt Dynasty podcast. I think that kind of got smashed with the combine. It looks like it's going to be Willis and Hall for all of us pretty much in consensus. So I'm going to post about this. I'm going to get the graphic up. I'm going to get everything that needs to be done up for this. But it'll be the top 3 running backs on consensus for us from the Full Tilt Dynasty podcast. So you're going to have to guess your top 3, our top 3 running backs in any of the comment sections, anything like that. If you guess that, we're going to mark it down. We are going to add you to the list. We're going to draw, and we'll see if you win it or not. And then that's how that's going to go. And we will be kicking off the draft schedule. I am looking at the freaking schedule, or at least I'm trying to. Oh, well, I'll post it. Whatever, who cares? Other than that, be a good person. Take care of one another. Don't be a human pile of garbage. Just because you're on the internet does not mean you can be a piece of shit to other human beings. Remember that. Remember that clear eyes, full hearts can never lose it. Your best days spent tilting. Thanks for joining us, you guys. This was an absolutely wild time. And enjoy the rest of the combine. Go
Thanks
Jordan
for
Davis, RB1. Peace.